for this week, Khadija radiallahu anha. And I wish, before I continue, to relate both of them. For Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that of the best woman of the earth and of the sky, Jannah and this earth, Maryam alayhi salam and Khadija radiallahu anha. Coupled both of them. When Khadija radiallahu anha was about to pass, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam informed her that when you go to your abode, Salim, give salams upon your two co-spouses that you have not as yet met. And that is Asya, the wife of Fir'aun, and Maryam alayhi salam, who will be the partners of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam when he's entered inside his maqam, his Jannah, his special abode inside Jannah. For Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, "At-tayyibun bit-tayyibat." Those that are pure will be connected with those women that are pure. And this also goes for Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that the best will be his spouses in the akhirah, in the hereafter. Khadija radiallahu anha, and for those of you who are on our mailing list and have received a set of notes, it will be pretty handy and pretty necessary for you. Well, maybe not necessary, but pretty handy for you right now, if you can recollect what we are going to discuss or the topic of our discussion today. For I wish to mention this point, that quite often, many talks that we hear, either on campus or out, they are more euphoric, they are more, spiritual boosters, rather than it being educational. And the best of delivery is the prophetic delivery. The prophetic delivery, and if you study, for example, the sublime prophetic delivery of the Hajjatul Wida, the final khutbah, it was exactly balanced between both. It gave people that spiritual boost, yet at the same time, it taught them the facts and the basics and the principles of their deen. A combination between both. That one, the spiritual aspect, used as a booster to deliver a necessary message. So my respected friends, for today's talk of Khadija radiallahu anha, let's combine both. For those of you who have read that memo, I started off the notes by including a hadith which is reported in Muslim, wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the messenger of Islam, when his wife Khadija radiallahu anha passed away. And let us remember that her passing away was towards the end of his stay in Makkah. It occurred at a time known as Amul Huzn, the year of grief. When the Quraysh, the non-believing or disbelieving residents of Makkah, had become absolutely fed up with the message of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and were prepared to do anything to rid themselves of him, one of the last-ditch efforts or attempts that they did was exiling his entire family. They were exiled in a valley later to be known as the Vale of Abu Talib. At that time, the valley had no name. But because Abu Talib was the patriarch of the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his uncle, and he was the head of the household, the vale or the valley became known as the Valley of Abu Talib. Khadija radiallahu anha, at age 60 plus, the wife of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as well as everybody else in the Banu Hashim, the immediate family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, those that were believers and those that were not believing Muslims as well, all of them were put inside this natural prison. For people have been using natural prisons for as long as time can recollect. In recent memory, people who were fighting against apartheid South Africa were put where? Robben Island, in the middle of nowhere off the coast. Napoleon himself, Santa Helena, in the middle of nowhere, that he will never find his way back to France, even by accident. He's in the middle of nowhere. Hell and be gone. So people have always used these natural perimeters as prisons. But these natural perimeters in addition to them being secluded and lonely, are extremely harsh on the personal self. And when they were released after 3 odd years from that valley, the first one to succumb to that hardship was the uncle of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Abu Talib, already close to 80 years of age, and he passed away, some say a few weeks upon their release from the valley of Abu Talib. After about 4 to 5 months, Khadija radiallahu anha succumbed to those hardships inside the valley. And at her deathbed, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, as grieved as he was, mentioned a recorded statement that speaks volumes of the attachment that he had with Khadija radiallahu anha. What did he say? He said that amanat bi, that she believed in me, حين كفرت بي الناس أو كذبت بي الناس, that she believed in me when everybody else falsified and denied me. Now look, there's 4 other statements inside this paragraph that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has just said. I've just narrated one. She believed in me when the people disbelieved in me. This is something major. For my respected friends, let us look at our present existence right now. All of us are remotely aware of how husband and wife relationships operate inside this world. And everybody knows, it is common knowledge, and I should attest to it, for probably I have already run the mill, and I'm the imam myself, so all these folks sooner or later will show up at my door. There are a few people that you really need in life. You need a doctor, you need a dentist, you need a mechanic, you need an imam. He's one of them. That you will need him sooner or later, whether you like it or not. And you will need him probably at, weird hours of the day. You'll need him, at times when other people are not busy, well, you will make him busy. And one thing I can attest to is that this is how relationships go. Muslim, non-Muslim doesn't make a difference. This is how everybody's relationships go. That you are not married. You can get off the phone with that person who you are going to be married to. Now, I'm not here to comment on the legality or the fiqh of that conversation. That I will leave it for your imagination. But this is the reality. That this is how it works. That for the 6, 7 months or maybe year prior to that wedding date, late night, after 11, everybody's gone to sleep. We know where the fiancé and the fiancée are. They are online or they are on the phone. Anyway, after the marriage date, well, it's all fine and dandy for 4, 5, 6, 7 months. But where you hit a hurdle is about 1 to 2 years after you have already been married. And then you sort of like get used to that person. And after about 18 months to 2 years, you wake up and you look at the bag of bones next to you in the bed. What did I get myself into here? This is not like a car that I can trade in. This is not like a horse I can sell. It's not like a sheep that is old, I can sell it to a slaughterhouse, or I can put it free on Craigslist. I can't do that. I'm stuck with this person for a long time. And many people, when they hit that first hurdle, they don't take proper action in the sense of rekindling themselves and rekindling their marriage when they're actually supposed to. They just behave like most couples that are there. They take it for granted and just shut up about it and continue. Until when they reach 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years of marriage. Now they stay married probably because of the kids or common interests, though they may stay in the same union. When it comes to their actual level of communication, and this is not a general statement, I'm sure there are many couples that are, great communicators, but it is a very often observed statement from my point of view, not general, but observed, that when they reach that 12, 13 years of marriage, that this wife is prepared to believe anybody who says anything, so long as the person who says it is not her husband. And the same with the husband, that he's prepared to believe anything, If his friends come and tell him that the moon is made of cheese, he'll believe it. But he will not believe his wife if she says that today is a trash pickup day and you need to have the trash out at 7 a.m. in the morning. Whatever. Oh, you know, the carpet cleaner is coming or the plumber is coming. He will not take it seriously. He'll take everybody else's work seriously. Now come back to the statement of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look what he says. Amanat bi. She believed in me when everybody else falsified me. When did this occur? They were already married for 15 odd years, 15 plus years. And here you have a husband and a wife relationship. Everybody else is saying, oh Prophet, oh Muhammad, you mad. But the wife is sticking with him from day one, right up until the day of her death. In addition to that statement speaking volumes about the level of her iman, it also speaks strongly about the relationship that the husband and the wife had inside that household, that she is believing in him and not giving a hoot of what people say. Continuing in that same statement that he recited, and which I have inside the notes, that he recited and he mentioned at the time of her passing, that what did he say after that? He said that anfaqat alayya, that she spent upon me from her wealth and everybody else denied me. This was in reference to the initial days of Islam. In the initial days of Islam, the primary expense that the Muslims had to bear, now bear in mind there was no zakat at this time, there was no sadaqatul fitr, you know, that charity that you give after Ramadan. Very little was mandatory at that time. The major expense that the Muslims had to bear was the freeing of slaves. Many of the people who accepted Islam in the initial days were of the slave population. And because of their Islam, they were brutally persecuted by their masters. The Muslims, even though they were just 40, 50 in number, would pool their wealth every once in a while to free a slave. Certain wealthy individuals like Abu Bakr radiallahu anh would free multiple slaves, including one of them being Bilal radiallahu anh, who he's freed with his own wealth. The rest of them would try and pool money together. That would be the primary expense in the initial days of Islam. And the secondary expense would be entertaining guests. When people would hear that there is a man named Muhammad and he's secretive in Makkah about his faith, because he's being persecuted, they would come from all parts of the peninsula. They would come secretly. Now these people would have to be taken care of for the night or multiple nights. They would have to be put up. They would have to be fed. That was another expense that the Muslims had to bear, entertaining the guests and ensuring their safety and their security for the nights that they were inside Makkah. These two expenses Rasulullah referred to, that Khadija radiallahu anha spent of her wealth. She spent in such a volume that nobody else had spent. So Rasulullah continues and says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given me through Khadija children, and He had not blessed or had not given me children through anybody else. This statement was mentioned when the son of Rasulullah Ibrahim was not as yet born. He was born in Medina out of Maria Qibtiyya radiallahu anha. When Rasulullah is mentioning this statement, he's mentioning this statement in Makkah years before the birth of Ibrahim, and is in reference to this point that in his Meccan life and until that point in time, Rasulullah had no children with anybody else but Khadija radiallahu anha. Now this is his statement and a recollection of what Rasulullah said at the passing of Khadija. From a factual point of view, Khadija bint Khuwaylid, her full name. Khadija bint Khuwaylid, her father being Khuwaylid, was born 15 years before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, 15 years before the year of the elephant. As we know, these terms, year of the elephant, year of that, it's a common reference that the Arabs before the invention of the Hijri calendar used to utilize events that would take place in the year to call the year of the elephant, year of the war, year of the rock, year of the flood, etc., etc. The year of the elephant was, of course, in reference to that incident where Makkah was under attack by the army of elephants led by an individual named Abraha, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raised a flock of birds to annihilate that entire army, and this is inside Surah Fil. Now we discuss this incident here quite often, Sunday school, halaqas, etc., etc. But very, quite seldom do we focus upon the impact of that particular incident. You see, whoever witnessed that incident either went two ways when Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam came and he started speaking of things well beyond the realm of this world, whoever was sane and able to witness the incident of the elephant either immediately accepted Iman in Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam because they had already witnessed the great phenomena of the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or either they went the other way and became the most severest of disbelievers, either one of the way. See, that's how it was. When Iman comes down, when Wahi is revealed in its initial stages, whether it is in the era of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam or whether it is in any prophetic period, whoever is around at the point of impact, when the revelation comes down, either goes two ways. You either become the extreme Muslim or you either become the extreme antagonist or enemy on the other side. There is no middle line, and there was no middle line in those days. Khadija radiallahu anha was 15 years old when that incident took place. She could in detail account and recollect every single moment of the day. The description of the army, the description, because she was in her prime. She was 15 years old, she could see everything. When the time came of revelation, somehow she could click with it immediately and understand that this is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Coming back to our factual recollection of Khadija radiallahu anha, she was married before Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Nobody knows exactly when she was married for the first time, but twice before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam she was married. From her first marriage, she had a boy and a girl. Both of them lived till adulthood, till Islam, and became Muslim. From her second marriage, she had a daughter by the name of Hind. Hence, she is known as Khadija, Umme Hind. That's where she gets her title from, Hind, from her daughter, from her second issue. That Hind, radiallahu anha, grew up. She became of the household of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and according to historical accounts, she became a Muslim as well. Now, when Khadija radiallahu anha was widowed for the second time, she sought or resorted to a life of singlehood. She didn't want to get married again. She had enough of husbands, two already, and two of them already dead. So she had, enough. She was approaching her 40s, concentrating on taking care of her kids, and by that time she had built a thriving business. She was probably one of the greatest and the biggest importers of cotton and fabrics inside Makkah Mukarramah from Sham. And what she used to do, because of the restraints of her being a woman and unable to travel, especially in those days, she used to hire people on consignment from the Meccan population, telling them that we will give you a share in the profits when the profits are yielded, and you go take goods or merchandise from Makkah, trade it for cotton in the Sham or the Syrian markets, and bring it back. That was the whole idea. Always, whenever there was an issue with the books, she suspected that the people around were crooking her, and that was a reality. That if you trust anybody else with your business, it's inevitable that sooner or later something is going to go wrong. She was always in the search for that honest trader, for that honest agent, until she came across Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. She came across him by way of chance. She knew nothing about him. She had a friend by the name of Nafisa radiallahu anha. Nafisa later on became a Muslim. Some people say that she was the half-sister of Khadija, but more historically she seems to be a friend of Khadija and one of similar age. When Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was of age himself, 1920, he got into a seasonal business trading camels with another partner with him. And that particular type of business demanded that he go out of the city ever so once in a while to the Bedouin encampments, buy their stock and bring it back to Makkah. They needed somebody to manage the office there in Makkah when they were away. They hired this friend of Khadija, Nafisa radiallahu anha. And whenever they would return, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, being a very bashful individual, would never just come to the office and show himself. Rather, the partner would go and he would just sit and chill with Nafisa inside the office, and they would just spend their time together. One day Nafisa actually asked him, I'm actually working for two people here. Where's your other partner? He's a young man like you. How come he's not showing up to the office whenever I'm around? So the partner tells call her the secretary or whatever you want to call her, the boss's secretary, the boss's secretary, plural because there's two bosses, tells the secretary that he's very bashful. He doesn't come in front of women just like that. That's not his nature. So she says that this struck me because Makkah was a time, or the era of Makkah, the era of Jahiliyyah, ignorance, was such where vice was free-flowing. Everybody was into it. It was like a big party for many people. People were looking for opportunities to engage and to liaise. And here you have a single person who is in the prime of his life, refusing to engage in the office shenanigans that everybody else were doing. What is up with him? She passes this message on to her friend Khadija radiallahu anha, who immediately takes a liking to the name and the character, even though she has not seen the man. Muhammad has not even met him. So what happens is that when the season of camel trading is over, Khadija makes a business proposal to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that, what, right now you are not employed, your seasonal product is over, work with me or work for me. And she sends him on 2 or 3 errands to the Syrian areas to trade, as she would send other people. And she noticed that this guy seems to be clean as a whistle, ever so honest, and he's upfront, and he never ever seems to lie or cheat. And this is exactly the person who I was looking for. On the last mission, she sends her slave, Maysara radiallahu anha, who accepts Islam, who's buried in Palestine, whose qabr I visited in 2004 outside the city of Afula in Palestine. He lies buried there, for he went out in the path of Allah during the period of Futuhat, during the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anh. But he also, a young man at that time, accompanies Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he gives a full report back of the individual character, that not only is he honest in his trading, but he refuses to stay at the inn where all the other traders stay, for he says that is a place of vice. Obviously, any inn, any hotel where single businessmen go to, whether it is here or anywhere for that matter, is going to be a place of vice. Whether it is 2,000 years ago, 1400, or even now, for that matter. That's how it is. He puts up in a barn, he puts up in a monastery, but he will not stay there at that same place. He will put up outside the inn, but he will not come inside that environment, even though his fellow traders find themselves there as well. So when she receives this report, she goes to Nafisa and tells her, make the proposal to him, that whether he wants to get married or not. Nafisa goes to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and says that, yeah, Muhammad, can I make a proposal to you? Do you want to get married? So Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that, you know what, I'm an orphan. I'm a yatim. That's what he was. And even though he was in his 20s at this time, everybody knows, no parents, no financial support. He's living with other people, uncles, cousins, no doubt, but they are not his. They are not his parents. Everybody knows he's not a wealthy person. He responds and he says, who will marry me? And there is nobody who will give their daughter over to me. Nafisa says, then what if I tell you of a person who's not interested in your wealth and not interested in your financial status? Are you willing? So, okay, let me know who this person is. Khadija bint Khuwaylid. Rasulullah says, never. She's the richest person inside the city. You're not asking for a 14, 15-year-old broke as me sort of family or a 16, 18-year-old broke as me sort of household. Khadija bint Khuwaylid says, if you say yes, leave the rest to me. Nafisa goes to Khadija radiallahu anha and says that he's interested. Khadija radiallahu anha calls Rasulullah and says, if you are interested, I'm interested as well. But Rasulullah says that your father will never ever marry you off to me. He's proud, he's an arrogant person, he's never going to marry you off to me. Khadija radiallahu anha says, okay, this is what you do. Come to my father when he is drunk. He gets drunk in the night and then asks for my proposal. And quite often when I mention such incidents, I have to put reference as well. This incident can be found in the Musnad of Imam Bazzar, in the Musnad of Imam Ahmad, and in detail in Tabrani, and this is a Hasan hadith that details the account of Khadija radiallahu anha mentioning, come to my father in the sakranihi when he is drunk. And he'll tell you yes. Because whenever he's drunk, he never says no to anybody. In fact, his business partners come to him at night when he's drunk. That's why we have to be with him. Because he'll tell them yes, yes, yes all the time. And we just keep him quiet so that he doesn't give our wealth and give everything away when they show up to drink with him in the hours of the night. Then she tells him that, take these 2 uqiyas. Uqiya is approximately 8 kilograms. To take these 2 uqiyas of silver, take it to the market, buy me jewelry, the normal jewelry that is given to a bride. So reserve part of it for my mahar, for my dowry. Buy me a set of clothes, this is my size. Buy a lamb, buy a sheep, and show up the day after my father who told you yes when he was drunk. Show up the next day with all these things ready to get married, and then he cannot back out when he sees all these things, and she gives him the cash. The bride gives the groom the cash to pay for the wedding. That's the type of bride that the guys need to look for. That's the type of bride. And you could show up broke as ever, and before you know it, broke in the morning, you show up in the evening, oh, here's the cash, buy me all those things and come and live with me. But of course, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as He says in the Quran, وَمَكَرُوا وَمَكَرَ اللَّهُ, the world plans and Allah plans, and Allah is the best of planners. This was the plan that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had for the security of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that Islam's prophet will find an environment, a household that will be conducive to the true propagation. His attention will be completely towards his task at hand, and that is the delivery of the message. The nikah takes place as planned. The khutbah of Rasulullah who is khutbatul nikah, his marriage khutbah, his kitab was done by his uncle Abu Talib. The family of Rasulullah presented the meher of 25 camels from their side, and the meher that Khadija radiallahu anha, the money that she gave Rasulullah was pumped inside the household, but the meher was provided by the uncles of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and they started living 2 to 3 days after the first proposal and after the first talk of marriage started to happen. Those were the best years from a social point of view of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this may be the historical account of Khadija, but let us understand that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam was blessed in that time with her, with all his offspring that grew to adulthood. His 2 sons who died in infancy, al-Qasim and Abdullah. Abdullah is also known as al-Tayyib and al-Tahir. Those are his titles. His real name is Abdullah, and the first one al-Qasim. Both of them passed away in infancy. But the 4 daughters, Zainab, Ruqaiya, Kulthoom, and of course Fathima to Zahra, radiallahu anhum, All of them lived till adulthood. All of them were married. In the case of Zainab and in the case of Fathima to Zahra, they had children of their own that grew up. The lineage of Zainab radiallahu anha no longer exists. However, the lineage of Fatima to Zahra through Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma continue to exist even up to today, and that is the prophetic lineage, or the lineage of the Sayyideen as it is termed in fiqh and sharia. Anyway, Khadija radiallahu anha passed away, as we mentioned, upon the release from their exile in the Valley of Abu Talib. She is buried in Jannatul Ma'la, the graveyard of Makkah Mukarramah. And at that time, there were very few Muslims inside that grave. Now, of course, the graveyard is full with Muslims. Her grave still remains today, close by to the Jabal, or the mountain of Jannatul Ma'la, able and possible that a person could visit it even today. Rasulullah ﷺ, without fail, at least once a week, though nobody has documented this here very well, would visit that grave. And Rasulullah ﷺ would spend long hours at that grave recollecting the memories of Khadija radiallahu anha. Years later, when he came to Medina and he was now married to Aisha radiallahu anha, he used to continue the discussion of Khadija radiallahu anha until one day, Aisha radiallahu anha, being the new wife, mentioned in a fit of frustration, come rage, whatever you want to call it, by saying that, you know, O Messenger of Allah, aren't you happy that Allah has substituted me, a young woman, for an old woman, your wife Khadija? Rasulullah ﷺ was so infuriated that he stopped talking to her for 1 month. That don't talk about Khadija in this particular way. For the time that she lived and the time that I spent with her are unforgettable times. And not just from a spiritual point of view, but also from a personal point of view. And at this point in time, whenever I choose to discuss the wives of Rasulullah ﷺ, and if any one of you were here for my class of the Arba'in, the 40 ahadith on Ibn Asakir, I don't think so, that was in Orange County about 6-7 months ago. Anyway, I always quote a very famous writing of Imam Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi rahmatullah alayhi, that writes on this point of relationship. And Rumi says, in his writing, he says that I have been given 2 types of insomnia that I'm grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. That when it comes to my beloved, whenever my beloved is with me, I cannot sleep. Praise Allah for that insomnia. And wherever my beloved leaves me, I cannot sleep in memory of my beloved. Praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for that insomnia. 2 insomnias that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives me that I cannot sleep. He recollects relationships, or true relationships, utilizing this poetry. Of course, it sounds different in Farsi, but this is the closest we could get in English. And of course, the gist of it is you could gauge that what he's referring to, that insomnia means memory of the beloved, which Rasulullah ﷺ is expressing right now. On another occasion, the younger sister of Khadija, Hala bint Khuwaylid, who was also Muslim, she came one day to the door of Rasulullah ﷺ just to meet him and greet with him. And Rasulullah ﷺ was very particular in keeping those relationships even after the passing of Khadija. Whenever he would slaughter a qurbani or an animal or an udhiyah in the household, a portion would go to the friends and the family of Khadija that was still alive. Whenever something good came his way, the first division would be for the friends. Those friends were already in their 60s and 70s themselves, of Khadija radiallahu anha. But a portion would go to them, for he was a very sentimental person. See, this was Rasulullah ﷺ. He was a statesman. It's very easy to be a statesman, a leader, a dynamic individual. But to be a sentimental statesman, to be a sentimental leader, now that's reserved for the divine individuals. That's reserved for very special people. And here he's showing his sentimental side, that even though he's running Madinatul Tayyibah, which is the center of Islam, He is now in charge of the lives of tens of thousands of people, yet at the same time, he is not divorcing himself from his personal needs and expressing his personal feelings. When Hala bint Khuwaylid, the sister of Khadija radiallahu anha, comes to his door knocking, Rasulullah was reclining on the bed, half in a state of sleep and awakeness. He gets up, saying, Khadija, Khadija, for the sound of Hala, her voice was very similar to that of her sister Khadija. Aisha radiallahu anha gets angry with him again and says that it seems that there is no woman in the entire world but Khadija. And I was never jealous of a woman that I never met, than how I was jealous of Khadija radiallahu anha, though I never met her. I never saw. By the time when she passed away, Aisha radiallahu anha was in her infancy at that time. She could have never recollected or understood what Khadija radiallahu anha looked like. Now this may have been an overview of the historical and the sentimental value that Rasulullah had with Khadija. But there are a number of points where Khadija radiallahu anha features very strongly that is related to the ummah in general. The most important time in this ummah was when the revelation came down. For that revelation signified the beginning of prophethood. It signified the beginning of the Quran. It defined what Islam was all about, where Rasulullah was inside that cave. Now when he comes down from that cave, and this hadith is the second hadith in Bukhari, when he comes down from that cave, where does he go to? Straight to his home. Who is responsible for comforting him? His wife Khadija radiallahu anha. What words does she use at that time to console him? She mentions a very important statement by telling him that لا تخف على نفسك الضياع, that do not fear any destruction upon yourself. Oh Muhammad, oh my husband, don't fear, you will not be destroyed. And then she gives him reasons why. You look after the orphan, you look after the widow, you are kind to the traveler, you are good to your neighbor, you are excellent with your family. Don't worry, Allah will not destroy you. That immediately comforts Rasulullah ﷺ. It calms him down. And later on, she takes active steps to take him to her cousin, Waraqa bin Nawfal, who was well versed in the scripture, who informs her and him that your visitor in the cave was Jibreel. And you soon to be a prophet that will be exiled by his own people. If that day comes, I am with you. Waraqa bin Nawfal passes away 1 week after that conversation with Rasulullah ﷺ. He never lived till the time of da'wah or the time of revelation, but he's considered to be a Muslim because he believed in the prophethood part, that yes, you are a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But coming back to that incident, who features inside that incident? Khadija radiallahu anha. So the greatest incident via which Deen and Islam had actually started, Khadija radiallahu anha is an all-important role player inside there. Secondly, the prayer. Though the 5 times prayer was revealed after the passing of Khadija radiallahu anha, prayer was made mandatory while she was still alive. The historians mention it was Fajr and Maghrib. And it occurred one day where Rasulullah was out in the valleys of Makkah. Jibreel alayhi salam appeared. He came to a corner of the valley, hit his heel inside the ground. Water shot out, brought the Prophet towards that water. Wudu was shown to him, and he prayed with him 2 rakats of salah, informing him the methodology of prayer. After that said and done, Rasulullah took the hand of Khadija radiallahu anha, who was traveling with him, brought her to that same spring. She made wudu and she performed salah as well. And this in Muslim history is the first recollection of the performance of contemporary prayer with ruku, with sujood, done by who? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, no one else there and available at that time. And not just salah, the wudu as well. Half of your deen is based on tahara and purity. Your salah and your hajj at least will be absent and non-existent without the purity factor. Who features inside that incident where Jibreel alayhi salam shows the wudu? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and after him, his wife, Khadija radiallahu anha. So this is her feature where it comes to the services that she renders towards the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Thirdly, the spending of wealth, which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam continued to appreciate and show favor upon her throughout her lifetime as well as upon her passing. The ummah owes her a great deal, especially for the freeing of many slaves from the tyrannical clutches of their rulers, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through her gave comfort to many. Fourthly, she is included inside salam and peace that was given to her directly from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There have only been a handful of people that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told them directly, may my peace be upon you. For example, Yahya and Zakaria alayhi salam, salamun alaihi, may the peace of Allah be upon them. The day he was born and the day he died, that comes in the Quran. But of regular people, not of the prophetic realm, Khadija radiallahu anha is one of them. The hadith is in Tirmidhi, wherein Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam one day came to her, and this is assumed to be a few days before she passed away, that he told Khadija radiallahu anha that Allah has given you salam. In one narration, Jibreel comes down to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and tells him that my Lord has commanded me to tell you that he expresses salam to Khadija radiallahu anha and gives her glad tidings of a house inside Jannah, that there is no tiredness and there is no fatigue inside that house. My respected friends, look at the choice words. These words in Arabic are actually saqab. There is no proper translation of the saqab word in English. The closest we could come to is tiredness, fatigue. You see, houses of this world, there's different types of houses in this world. People dream of their dream house. And when they are like 50 something, they finally identify that dream house in the woods somewhere. You know, the same woods that people got murdered behind. The same woods with older elder trees growing in the backyard and a place for the kids to play around, though those kids are like in their 30s by now. Grandkids to play around, who maybe will visit once or twice in the year. They dream of this house, but little do they realize that such properties of the dunya, of the world, come with fatigue and tiredness. You got to pay it off. You got to fix the roof ever so once in a while. You got to pay bills. You got to clean, otherwise the place will look like a dump. You got to cut grass, trim bush. You have to do all those things to keep your property in check. Now look at the words that Rasulullah ﷺ delivers to Khadija when she's about to pass away. That Allah has promised you a house inside Jannah, such a house that will not make you fatigued and tired. You will be truly relaxing inside that house, and that can only be in Jannah. In another narration, which is in Bazaar, Rasulullah ﷺ tells her that Allah has promised a house for you in Jannah out of a single hollowed pearl, and your home will be carved out inside that single hollowed pearl wherein you will be residing. There is only one other group in the entire history of Islam that has been promised such a household of a solid pearl, and those are the mujahideen that die out in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a hadith of Muslim Sharif, wherein Sayyidina Anas radiallahu anhu says that Allah promises a person who passes out in the way of Allah, that depending on the distance or the extent, the width of the distance covered from his house to the place that he passes away, that size, Allah will give him a single hollowed out pearl in Jannah with so many rooms and so many extensions to his family that he will spend 70 years just going from room to room of that one single property of his. There's only one other group, the Mujahideen, other than Khadija radiallahu anha, that have been promised that one solid, hollowed out pearl as their home and as their abode in Jannah. And in conclusion, my respected friends, in addition to the dua, the spending, the services, the close personal support that she gave Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, there is an everlasting attachment that this ummah has with Khadija radiallahu anha. The progeny of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, known as the Ahlul Bayt, his family, the descendants of Hassan and Hussein radiallahu anhuma. And when I say this, my respected friends, I can recollect exactly 4 years ago on this campus, I don't think it was this room, that I gave a talk on the Ahlul Bayt, which still features up very strongly ever so once in a while. I was invited for a reason, and that is to clarify what is the Muslim position on the Ahlul Bayt. Well, the reality is, my respected friends, that irrespective of whatever is your background or your fiqh, the ummah is unanimous in their respect and their attachment to the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The ummah is unanimous in respecting and understanding that the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam are no ordinary people. Of course, after all, the blood of Rasulullah sallallahu runs inside their veins. Zubayr radiallahu anhu once, when Rasulullah sallallahu disposed of his blood, he performed cupping, which was a type of treatment done in those days and even now. When he performed it, he gave the blood over to Zubayr radiallahu anhu. Zubayr radiallahu anhu looked at the blood and said, this blood is not from any human being. It is from the body of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Rasulullah tells him, take this blood, go and dispose of it at the back somewhere, dig a small hole, bury it. He goes and he consumes it, and he comes back to the masjid. Rasulullah says, I understand you did this here out of love for me. I understand you did this here out of love for me. But understand this, that whoever has my blood flowing inside their body, the people of the world towards you will be divided in two. Either they will love you like nobody else has loved anybody else, or either they will be your enemy, such an enemy that you never ever thought that an enemy could ever exist. But that was how Rasulullah was. That the people around either loved him, his companions and the people who were around, or they were his arch enemies looking to destroy him from inside or from outside. Oh Zubair, watch out that you have done this. The family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam continues to exist even up to today. And though this is a topic all on its own, the attachment that we have with them is because of Khadija radiallahu anha. Through her and through the union with her and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the daughter Fathima to Zahra radiallahu anha was born. And of course, Fatima to Zahra is the mother of Hassan and Hussein, known as the Hassanain in Arabic terminology. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to allow the progeny of Rasulullah to develop. And in fact, even Imam Mahdi, coming towards the end of time, will be from that progeny of Fatima to Zahra through Hussein radiallahu anhu. So my respected friends, Jazakumullah khairan for your time. This is an overview. Of course, there's a lot to be said about Khadija Al-Kubra, but I believe that this here is a good cover of from her sentimental side to a bit of her factual life also included inside there. For those of you who want to visit it, kindly go and visit those notes, the ones we send out inviting you to the program, to the Greatest Woman program. All of them, or the link is posted up there, and inshallah this video here will augment whatever we have discussed today. Jazakumullah khairan.